Hey, welcome back to the show. Art and literature are vital to any healthy society, and that means hearing from all voices, all lived experiences. Speech is My Hammer, Black male literacy narratives in the age of hip hop. Seattle's Max Hunter draws on his own experiences as he examines the power of literacy. And Max joins me now. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Well, Speech is My Hammer. Tell me why this was the right time to write this book.
You know, as I think about that question, any time in the 20th century could have been the right time to write this book. When I think about the literacy struggles of one of the most prominent African-American authors, Langston Hughes, he could have used this book, I believe. But particularly in this moment, in this where hip-hop culture is pervasive and permeating globally, but particularly the black community. And when I think about the passing of Devon Pickett, and at the hands of allegedly, at the hands of a friend who was an aspiring rapper, and he was almost like a hip hop icon himself, right? Who brought together hip hop culture, but the history and culture of the historic Central District, and unfortunately was passed. And you know, some of his eulogies or obituaries, especially like one written by this young hip hop scholar or a journalist, Troy Landon, starts with a story about Nipsey Hussle and ends, the framing is hip hop. So I think it's relevant to our young people.
And so intertwined,
adults.
and so deep. And in the book, you reference the media, especially the movies that we've all seen. What does the media get wrong? I mean, I know there's a lot, but what does the media get wrong when it comes to black males? In the book, you reference Finding Forrester.
Right. So, I'm an academic, so I try to, and especially in this modern time, in our times, I try to move away from the binary right and wrong. I think there's things that the media gets right. For example, in Finding Forrester, you have this brilliant young black man. He's stoic. He doesn't share his literacy with his colleagues. He does share it with Forrester in the right spaces in a private school, but then there's challenges because often these young men are framed as exceptional anomalies, isolated, right? Unique characters that you'll rarely encounter in everyday life. And so I think, and the other thing is that we don't find out much about his interior life. Like we watch the film, we see the external story, but we really don't get access to what's going on internally. And I think literacy moves us towards self-reflection and sharing what's inside, right? And so I would like to see more of the interiority of the black.
That's such a good point with that movie, and being able to get to that. If we can, the literacy helping us explain and delve out who that person is.
Right.
You also referenced The Wire.
Right. So, I mean, it's more of the same, right, except it's more extreme. So you have Stringer Bell, this character in The Wire, and people have said I'm a lot like Stringer Bell, right? And so he's, again, this exceptional black man who's striving towards literacy and to move beyond the barriers that are keeping him in Baltimore. And, I lived in D.C. around the time of contemporary to like this story and when it happened. But he doesn't have a community of other scholars, readers, and we don't even learn more about his, family. The guys on the street are his family, and that may be true, but there are so many. Like as I've become more literate, and as I read about other black males' literacy journeys, I find even in incarceration, there's like reading groups and stuff like that, right? And there's other black males that read. So what I don't like, the big challenge with that is often black male readers who are erudite will internalize that narrative and then begin to see themselves as a solitary individual that's isolated, that can't let it out and can't share it with the community and their friends because they wouldn't be interested or they wouldn't get it.
Wow.
And I see that over and over again.
Yeah, changing this narrative, expanding that is so key. This book is very heady, and you have to say, in it, you make the case, and you alluded to this earlier when you were speaking about the eulogy, that hip hop has redefined the relationship with black youth and society. Can you kind of go into that a little bit more?
Yeah. I mean, hip hop is so ubiquitous. Now you have like hip hop scholars. Harvard has a hip hop museum and archive. You have preachers taking on hip hop personas, teachers police officers even, you know, with the tattoos and all of that hip hop swagger. And so the culture in and of itself is shifting and moving society, but the culture is in the hands of younger and younger people. So young, we call them, they have names like Little Romeo, Little Bow Wow, Little Uzi Vert, right? And we're not just talking about their stature, we're talking about their age. And so because these young people are having conversations in music and in, you know, on social media about everything that touches on the lives of us in the community, from intimate relationships, from, you know, business, from family. They've taken the discourse, the fancy word we use in academia, they've taken these conversations and kind of forcing us to grapple with their perspective, right? And we can foreclose them or foreclose conversation with them or look down on them with condescension, but you know, one, I don't think that's an option. That's not the best option.
It's
but
not,
also,
no.
I think they're forcing us to think more expansively about what it means to be a citizen, what youth and children need, and how to do everything from like run a company to, you know, I don't know, just all over.
Well, you know, and like you said, I mean, this is something that is now. It's not I like the fact that now that we have all these avenues to explore that we didn't have before.
Right.
And I think it's so interesting in reading your book, and I mean, you talk about, you know, Frederick Douglass. I mean, there's so much there. I hope that people do read and get into this. And what do you hope, I guess, overall that readers take away from your book?
You know, that's a tough question, because as a writer, and knowing now I'm a writer, I can't believe I just said that. This is my first published book. You know, I learned to read late, as you know, and all that. What I want, I guess, if I boiled it down in a nutshell, I want people to realize that there's an intrinsic, to remember and remind themselves that beyond the myth that literacy will lead to, high levels of literacy will lead to social mobility, that literacy has its own inherent and intrinsic value for cognition and reflection and growth and evolution. And that's a big part of every story of every black male that you read, you know, from Malcolm X to Arthur Wayne Beth, who just won the, last year won the MacArthur Genius, to Kiese Layman. Literacy is a powerful tool for personal transformation, not just for how it could change your life economically or financially or socially, but it has its own beauty and value in and of itself. I don't know. That's kind of squishy. It's not really tangible.
No,
but
it's so true. It's when you read something and it becomes therapy within you,
Right.
and then you read something that you understand, and whether it's triggering or inspiring, it's so crucial. And you know, speaking of not being able to get the backstory, I didn't even get to really get into talking about you too much, so that's our next interview.
Okay.
Thank you so much, Max. And of course, you can hear him speak and read from his book, Speech is My Hammer, next Wednesday, January 18th at Elliott Bay Book Company on Capitol Hill. Max will be joined by artist Moses Sun. For more info on that event and several others, just go to our website.